everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. So, the controversy continues surrounding Harry and Meghan's Nigeria trip. The First Lady of Nigeria is all of us. Or is she? As I'm sure you've heard, the First Lady of Nigeria made some very pointed remarks regarding clothing and Meghan Markle, but the internet and the general public seems a little bit divided on it. Some groups don't think it was necessarily a negative comment, while the majority definitely took it as such. So let's investigate and figure out what exactly is going on. The biggest quote from Senator Tinubu is, "We do not accept nakedness in our culture." But don't just take my word for it. Here's the clip.
The message here is we have to salvage our children. You know, we see the way they dress, they keep forgetting that Nigeria, we are beautiful. The moment you can see what they showcase on the stage, I said we are fashionable, we see what is going on. You know, we are not having a Met Gala, and everyone, their nakedness is just everywhere. And the men are well clothed. So we have to do something. Tell them the way it is. We don't accept nakedness in our culture. That is not beautiful. It's not beautiful at all. They should be confident to know they are. They don't want to be like, even they are mimicking and trying to emulate film stars from America. They don't know where they come from. Why did Meghan come here looking for Africa? That is something we have to take home with.
A lot of supporters of Meghan Markle claimed that Senator Tinubu had meant that the Duchess went to Nigeria from California looking for Africa because of the power of Nigeria's traditional fashion and culture, and that Nigerian women should therefore keep the country's own traditions alive rather than copy Hollywood. One tweet reads, "The First Lady of Nigeria tells Nigerian women not to lose sight of their culture. It is the reason why the Duchess Meghan visited Nigeria." However, most people on Twitter and social media and just general media took it as a dig. One tweet said, "All I heard is Nigeria is a decent cultured nation and their daughters need better role models who don't come dressed nakedly like the likes of Meghan." She also added, "If the likes of Meghan need a place to go naked, they should attend the Met Gala." As usual, the headlines are not necessarily the most reliable. The First Lady of Nigeria doesn't say Meghan came here naked and we don't accept that, as some headlines read. It wouldn't make sense for her to have said that anyway, because Meghan literally wasn't naked. She just looked naked in comparison to all the other women she was around. They do tend to dress in more modest styles. She mentions things like the men are well clothed, so the women need to be too, things like that. So what exactly did she mean by this comment? The defense that Meghan came to Nigeria because the culture's women have a strong sense of identity and Meghan basically wanted to touch grass by going to Nigeria, I would disagree with for two reasons. First, the Meg did not behave like somebody who wanted to come and learn about this strong culture to take that home with her. Meghan made a lot of haughty comments. She did not respect or emulate the culture at all. She didn't even seem like she attempted to learn about it based on her actions. If that were to be true, then we would have seen the Meg in a lot more modest of a wardrobe and a lot more colorful of one. Secondly, it wouldn't really make sense to mention Meghan's visit in that way, in the context of what she was saying, if it was a compliment, because there would need to be a little bit more contrast there to make it clear that she was putting Meghan in contrast to the nakedness from Hollywood actresses in the Met Gala, for example. Instead, it was very much all in one stream going in the same direction. Meg's comment was added into that, still going in the same direction, if that makes sense. If the First Lady intended to use it as praise for Nigerian women and their culture, she would have said something along the lines of, "Meghan was drawn to this. More people should come and visit like Meghan did to learn about our culture," or any sort of other positive spin similar to that. But that is not what happened. There were really no positive notes and not even a change in tone when she mentioned Meghan Markle. It was more like she was listing yet another point to back up her position. It was definitely a pointed comment. Among Meghan's really big talk of Nigeria being her country, her home, she came home to be a role model for young girls in Nigeria, I think is what set this whole thing in motion. Because Meghan didn't behave in line with Nigerian cultural values, or at least popular cultural values in Nigeria, she didn't set a good example. She did not look or act like a role model, but yet she narrated herself to be one, a self-appointed savior role model. She's trying to get across the point that they should feel beautiful without showing skin. And it's clear that this is ingrained in their culture, because literally every woman that the Meg came across who was actually from Nigeria was much more clothed than Meghan was. Now, this isn't necessarily a case for super conservative dress in general everywhere. However, when you're visiting somewhere, you do need to go with whatever that culture and that society does. Because if you don't, it's very disrespectful and rude. There's no reason to push something like high slits, deep v-necks, open backs, and side boob on a culture that doesn't believe in that, doesn't want that, and doesn't like that. It's plainly disrespectful to try to force something like that on a culture that simply doesn't want it. Some defenders of Meghan Markle claimed that she was trying to demonstrate you can be free to dress however you want and show more skin as some sort of like empowerment message. But this doesn't make sense for several reasons, including the fact that those outfits simply didn't even suit the occasion at all. So it didn't like make sense. If it were times or occasions where it made sense, like I'm gonna wear shorts to a sporting event instead of a long skirt, maybe that argument would make sense. But wearing a dress with a high slit and a spaghetti strap and it has a cutout and all these things to a sporting event isn't really showing some sort of empowerment or like it's okay to wear shorts if it's hot out and you're going to do sports. Like it's not the same vibe. Her outfits were out of place and impractical and against the grain. So she not only looked really foolish, but that sort of a message, trying to get that sort of a message across, if that were her motivation, could actually put girls into risky situations or even in danger simply of like getting in trouble with their parents, at their schools, at their churches. They could get in trouble for trying to dress the way Meghan Markle does. The argument that she was trying to show that it's okay to dress that way would be incredibly foolish, because if an entire culture doesn't allow showing that much skin, then encouraging children or young girls to do that is dangerous for them. So we can definitely rule out that it was meant as a compliment. It wasn't. The question we're left with then, was it a direct criticism or simply just a reference? It was a clear rebuke of Meg's display. Why is that the most logical interpretation of the First Lady's comments? Well, firstly, because Meghan made really big declarations that she is a role model specifically for her home country of Nigeria, coming home to that country to be a role model. That was her entire angle at the Women in Leadership speech, the time where she said the most things, which in some ways was actually really insulting to the female leaders of Nigeria, who are from Nigeria, who have been working to set good examples for their culture, for their children, for decades now. People who are Nigerian born, raised in Nigeria, familiar with the culture, religions, struggles and systems, celebrations and communities, are the actual role models for those girls, not the Meg. For Meg to come in there bronzer blazing, declaring that she's the new role model for Nigeria, the best role model they've ever seen, without knowing anything about the country or the people or the culture or the religions, none of it. It's incredibly rude and tone deaf. It's really kind of disrespectful or dismissive or minimizing towards all the women, female role models who have been being role models and setting good examples and doing good work. Secondly, Meghan Markle did dress inappropriately. It's not up for debate. It's not a question. It's not even a question of taste or preference. She didn't dress appropriately, like at all. Anywhere in the country, Any school wearing a dress that has side boob and an open back is not appropriate attire for a school. It's not even appropriate attire to wear for school drop off. Wearing a red spaghetti strap evening or dancing dress to a leadership panel of business ladies around lunchtime makes you look ridiculous no matter what country you're in. Meghan Markle didn't dress appropriately for the events, let alone the culture or country. In a sea of people dressed vibrantly and modestly, she was the opposite. Not professional, not suitable to venue or occasion, bad manners. The whole point of having good manners is to make others comfortable around you. And she did not. She failed miserably at that. Sort of selfish dressing, making yourself look foolish, it goes beyond making yourself look ridiculous and standing out in a bad way. It does give a really bad impression of your character, but more importantly, perhaps, it can make other people feel weird or uncomfortable, confused even. For example, if you are overdressed for an event, you make others feel underdressed, which is not polite. If you are underdressed, it can make others feel uncomfortable or awkward, and even make them feel like they're overdressed because you're underdressed. You're showing skin at appropriate times where it makes sense, like at a beach or at a pool or something like that, it's fine. And presumably the other people around you would also be in similar outfits. However, dressing with showing a lot of skin at inappropriate times, it puts others in a really awkward position. Especially when standing close or taking photos, they're forced to be against your bare skin. Many strangers, especially from a country unaccustomed to wearing less clothing, runs a high risk of making them feel super uncomfortable just with the experience at all. And when you think about, for example, kids or young people who are perhaps excited to meet somebody who's famous or well known or who they think this is going to be a big deal, and then has this sort of power imbalance where they're bearing their skin and you're expected to maybe put your arm around them for a picture or lean in against their bare skin, and you are from a culture that would be very frowned upon, perhaps even in some cultures is considered shameful, it could create a really bizarre set of feelings, a really complicated set of feelings for that individual, for that child, or for that young person to be put in a position where they feel very uncomfortable, but they're with somebody famous who they've been told is a big deal, coming to their school, and they're supposed to be respectful to this person, and they're feeling uncomfortable. It's just like a whole messy situation that's just not okay. It also just leaves a selfish and unaware impression of yourself. Thirdly, we have this debate on empowerment versus pushing your own agenda happening in reference to Senator Tinubu's comments on Meghan Markle's poor choice of dress. Put it simply, the vibes were all wrong here. When a high-profile person swans into a country for the first time, it is not an invitation to try to be revolutionary, change the culture, or impose your beliefs upon them. This is the same mistake that she made with the royal family. She didn't bother to understand the dynamic or the role or the culture before she tried to do things differently, bend the rules or ignore them, or modernize or change the way things were done. It's like trying to put changes into play before you even finished training at a new job. You just don't do that because you don't have a good grip, a good understanding of the entire situation, the big picture, all the little elements at play that make something work well. It ultimately doesn't matter if her ideas or someone's ideas in a hypothetical situation were good or bad or right or wrong. If you don't yet know the job or the culture or the country or the role that you're stepping into, you don't even understand it, you cannot make suggestions for change or try to shift the way things are done because you just don't understand the full picture yet, and you haven't even given it a chance to sink in and learn first. Those suggesting that she wanted to demonstrate some sort of empowerment narrative are just out of touch. That would be completely inappropriate and unwelcome, and it does come off as somebody ignorant to the complexities of the culture, foisting her personal beliefs onto them that they should be showing more skin. I really don't think those saying that Meghan Markle was trying to like set this big example and create cultural change fully understand the gravity of what they're trying to say. That Meghan, some complete and utter outsider, should go into that country and basically say that what they're doing and what they value is completely wrong, that's really questionable. Furthermore, dressing foolishly is not aspirational or empowering at all. Simply because Meghan chose outfits that didn't suit the occasion, she made herself look silly and nullified any opportunity to be like, this is a cool new idea you guys should contemplate. A perfect example of why Meghan Markle's outfits were such a poor choice is this situation. This little girl was forced to give her roses, and she clearly didn't want to. I don't know if it was her mother or whomever, but kept like pushing the little girl's chin up to like look up at the camera. The little girl didn't smile at all, and these pictures are just terrible optics. The Meg is shoving her face in this little girl's face. It's just not a good approach, but the Meg knows this. We have seen her squat down to look kids eye to eye plenty of times before, even while pregnant in high heels. And eye to eye is not the same as shoving your face down into their face from above. It doesn't send the same message. The reason she couldn't kneel down or squat down to do this right and make the child more comfortable is because of her stupid dress. The slit was so high that if she would have tried to do that, her entire crotch would have been out. Had she worn something sporty, on the other hand, though, like Bermuda shorts or joggers or a printed midi skirt, a t-shirt with that, tennis shoes, sporty attire, then these sorts of things wouldn't have happened. These sorts of bad optics and awkward pictures wouldn't be out here. Or for example, this red dress. It took away from her presence massively. This is a terribly executed dress moment. It made her look ridiculous on this panel. And it reminds me of an article that I read a long time ago that quoted something that the Meg had said or tweeted or put on the TIG or something like that, that said something along the lines of, women can dress beautifully or like want to look pretty or sexy, but also be taken seriously. But this demonstrates an example of her doing the exact opposite, just completely not showing that in real life at all. In order to be taken seriously while being pretty or beautiful or sexy or wanting to have your hair and makeup on, things like that, and be taken seriously in a given situation, you need to execute well. You can't be having your panty lines show or dress comically out of place for the venue just because you want to wear a pretty dress that day. That makes you look childish, like you're playing dress up, rather than dressing for the event. With every bump showing under her dress, it made her look not smart. Not smart enough to realize that that looks bad and is a distraction and is amateur. Not to compare, but Catherine is a great example of looking absolutely gorgeous and glamorous and stunning while being taken seriously at events. She comes across as an intelligent woman, a compassionate woman who has a lot of value to deliver events. But she still shows up looking perfectly polished and glamorous and fabulous. It doesn't take away from her presence with the way she looks or the way she dresses, no matter how beautiful she looks that day. She adds to it because she's dressed properly for the given occasion. It really makes sense that this messaging that Meghan tried to push, that she is a role model for these girls, while she was in direct opposition to the values of the culture, was what the actual problem was for the First Lady and probably for many people in Nigeria. To come in high profile and declare yourself a role model while being ignorant and disrespectful or even dismissive of the way these people live and what they value. It's clear why the First Lady wanted to discourage that idea and encourage a different message. Sometimes Western culture is automatically dismissive of modesty in general. They label it as restrictive without giving a thought to deeper meanings or positives to these differences. But also, there's been a few baby number 3 rumors floating around, and I think that is her PR team trying to deflect from this story because it's so clearly negative for Meghan and makes a mockery of her tour and her behavior there, and would certainly discourage other countries with similar values from inviting her because she behaved terribly. So then other countries aren't going to want that either. Meghan Markle's master plan to put out Nigeria snippets, pictures, exclusives, and stories anytime negative press pops up is completely failing right now because she can't use a story from Nigeria or a picture from Nigeria to deflect from the Nigerian First Lady criticizing her behavior in Nigeria. So she has put out this fabricated rumor that they are ready to welcome baby number 3 to try to distract from this huge storyline. It's really rather unprecedented. But almost no publications are running with this baby number 3 rumor because it's just ludicrous. Also, remember when Prince Louis was either a newborn or about to be born, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made this big promise publicly that they would have no more than 2 children, which everybody was like, that's super rude. Your nephew is about to be born, or, you know, you're about to have a third niece nephew born here. So why would you say something like that? How rude for your brother who now has 3 children. Super awkward. So it would be extra awkward if they really were trying to have a third baby. What do you think? What do you think about this deflection technique of, oh, maybe we'll have baby number 3? What do you think of the First Lady's comments? Please leave it below. I cannot wait to read the discussion. Thank you so much for joining me for today's quick little update, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.